colors.
Apparently,
yeah, we are trying to
and
get
black are trending
pink
right
and
now.
black are
The brilliance of Jim Grody, the founder of Donato's, engineered a better pizza. Engineered,
like literally engineered.
He's an inventor. When you get to the biology and psychology of the way we think and feel, we care more about why people do what they do than what they sell. That's cause and commerce.
I like that.
And it's authentic. That's the thing. You can't make this up. But if you do it right, you'll be remembered.
We're back.
We're back?
We're back.
Where'd we go?
That's a great, we do have different clothes on, so we went someplace, at least to the changing room.
Wait, you gave it away?
I did.
It's been days since I've seen you.
Yes, it has been days.
It's so
weeks,
good to
months,
see you
whatever.
again.
It is great to see
My
you again,
goodness.
Kevin. Your hair looks the same. Look at this. We're both showing off shoes. Kevin was trying to one-up me on the shoe game, so I had to go put the smack down on the shoe game there.
We got the shoe share going on.
We got the shoe share going on.
And for a reminder for everybody that really wants to understand the realm of possibilities, what's behind the shoe share again?
That's a great question. I think that was what we were talking about previously, right?
Yeah.
This idea of getting perspective of other people and not just thinking about, truly walking a mile in their shoes, right? But you got it. It's not just the shoes. If you're sharing shoes with somebody and I have one on and you have the other one on, like I have to stand in your position. I have to see your perspective. I have to see the world through your eyes. And it's really hard for people to do. I talk about this all the time with process. And I think it's really true in marketing. And I think it's true in anything with professional services. Kevin, do you cut your own hair?
Not since I got rid of the Flowbee.
Yeah, right. You remember that? But there's a reason you don't. And you don't cut your own hair because you can't get perspective. All you can get is your perception. And when you're looking in that mirror and it's reflected back at you and it's opposite, and you're got a sharp object and you got another mirror in the back and you're trying to work all these things out, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Somebody has to have a perspective that's different than yours, that is standing above you, that can look down and go, let's leave a little bit more here at the crown because that's starting to thin out a little.
So I don't.
Do you resemble that remark as well?
I don't do the comb over. I do the pull back.
The pull back, right?
The pull back.
I just tell them don't cut that. Just leave whatever I have left. Leave it there because it is diminishing.
When we were growing up, my siblings would draw a picture of my dad, who had this charming little look up here, receding here, and Dad's hair was just an M. You'd put an M on it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We used to, I've had the gray hair game going on since I was young too. My dad was going gray. I think he was probably 28 or 29 years old and said, "Could you guys pick the gray out of my hair?" And we're like, "You'll be bald," at that point. So growing older, it is what it is.
How old are you?
I just turned 50. Actually, you were at my 50th. How old are you, Kevin? I don't even know.
61.
You get out. Really? I thought you were maybe 2 or 3 years older than me. I did not know that.
61.
That's pretty cool.
I'm out there. I'm out there, Jerry.
Well, yeah. So that's why some of your movie references we don't get. We wanted to talk about vocabulary today. It's because we're old and we have movie references that people don't get.
Yeah, and I brought up Cool Hand Luke.
You did, and that is like everybody knows. I hope you know who Cool Hand Luke is.
We'll go ahead and rattle those off again.
Let's riff on this. Yeah.
Mine are Shawshank Redemption, Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Beautiful one.
Great.
Braveheart is one I forgot to say earlier.
Braveheart. See,
love Braveheart. Everything about that is romantic, and Godfather. Yeah. And then my oldie is the Cool Hand Luke.
Cool Hand Luke.
Cool Hand Luke.
I'm not a huge movie buff, but I think I got to add Goodfellas to the mix too. I think Goodfellas was just like that classic.
I hadn't seen it forever. My son's like, "Dad, you got to see this movie.
Yeah.
It's called Goodfellas."
Yeah.
I think
it's sort of I think this getting older thing, it reminds me, I'll never forget when I was running this company, U-Change, we did electronics recycling. And I had one of my people come back one day and said, "Check it out. Somebody made a 3D printed model of the save icon." And they were holding a 3.5 inch floppy disk. And they were like, somebody 3D printed the save icon. And I was like, oh God.
So I will.
That makes you feel
Here's
old.
the age. I've watched somebody doing something on a computer, and I say hit carriage return.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know what that means.
What?
There's a crew here, all of which are very young people. Everybody is sitting here going, what are these old dudes talking about right now?
Yeah. So this was our
Vocabulary.
foray into vocabulary.
Yeah, vocabulary is important.
And Michael Jr., if you haven't followed him,
Not familiar.
really funny comedian. And there's not a cuss word in his repertoire because he grew up in a faith-based world.
Yeah.
And a man of color and a funny man. So he sits down, he's talking about vocabulary. And it plays out like this. He says, Derrick, I got news for you. You are never going to be on the national lacrosse Olympic team.
It's probably true.
So how do you feel about that?
I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Derrick, I noticed that you're not being the best husband you can be. How do you feel about that?
That is a little tricky. Yeah.
It's like these are things that are common language, common speak, but words hit hard. And for somebody who's trying out for that lacrosse team, man, that's a blow.
Right.
That's a blow.
Worse.
And by the way, Derrick's a lovely husband. There's no problem there. So,
No.
but the point is that these are the things that tone,
Yeah.
body language, inflection. I will say things like, I think I'm being polite to either my wife or my kids. Will you go do such and such, please? And they're like, what? And you're just throwing that in, Dad. You really weren't being nice. I thought it was kind of nice to put the please there at the end.
Yeah.
Please, Michael, could you go run that errand for me? Sounds a lot better than, Michael, will you go run that errand, please?
Sounds like an afterthought. Yeah, when you put it at the end.
Just
Isn't that interesting and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the amygdala, the limbic brain, this
Yes.
whole thought process that generates feelings, but it doesn't have a vocabulary.
correct.
But oddly enough, your vocabulary can influence the feeling set that is there in the limbic brain and the amygdala. Now, I can't pronounce it today.
All right, so we're going to have to, the realm of possibilities just had its final show because our vocabulary stinks.
It is diminished. But that is really interesting how vocabulary can affect things.
Yeah.
And I've been, I know we're talking about AI some too, and I think it's really fascinating to me that, AI content generation now is a commodity with AI. But I really believe that literature will come back. I believe poetry will come back. I believe the things that AI can't do are truly deeply think about something. Like, can you imagine like Edgar Allan Poe? I mean, they didn't just jot this stuff down and send it to the press. They mulled over it for weeks and months and years and crafted it like an engineer.
Right.
They were content engineers in that. They were engineering a message that I think resonates over time. But I think as you evolve as a human being as well, you go back to it and you read it again and you go, wait, did it actually say this the first 15 times I read it?
Right.
Because all of a sudden the position that I'm at in the world that I am today and the biases and my knowledge base and all of the things that have influenced me change the way that I read and perceive the words.
It's some of the great artists, songwriters of all time. You don't know how many versions of what they did. I won't mess up which one of the artists is, but it's famous artists that we think of their best work, and yet they actually produced work 3 to 4 times a day over their lifetime, and it is in the tens of thousands of pieces of art.
Yeah.
And that repetition is what made them who they are.
So true.
So repetition of mundane things, we are in a different time. And AI can do some things that Mother Nature and human beings had to do in the past. And I heard a quote that, we have to embrace this, Derrick.
Oh, totally.
Because you've said on some of your podcast and social posts that there's this day. Remind me of the day?
Singularity, right?
That
December 15th, 2022. Yeah, that's it. That's the beginning of the modern age. That was the day that ChatGPT in version 3 came out and went live. It changed the world.
completely. And there'll be a lot of argument for the better, for the worse. How does our morality keep up with this technological change? But the fact of the matter is it's here, and AI is not going to uninvent itself.
Yeah, I really like you said that at lunch, and I really have been thinking a lot about that point. AI is not. I said it the other day on one of my shows. Right now is the fastest time technology has ever advanced in history. It is also the slowest time it will ever advance in the future
because of where we are in that adoption and the escalation.
But today is, if you're sitting on the sideline and you're saying, I need to get on this bus at some point, but you understand that the trajectory and the speed and the kinetic energy of the bus is as such, today's the slowest day to jump on.
Yeah.
It will be faster tomorrow and the next day and the next day, which means it will be harder to get on board once we get farther and farther down the line.
So these are some of the things that not only keep me up at night, but wake me up in the morning, because there's ways to embrace it. We at my firm, AI Advertising, have this term called marketer plus machine. And that's all the marketing elements, the copywriter, the designer, the person that's running the ad, writing the email, developing the landing page or website. This makes it better. So because the math is giving insights. So the way we think about that and embrace it is that there's a way to go ahead and harvest the signals in and around our psychology. Okay. We do it in and around Big Five Ocean. And
so what's that mean?
Oceans is a type, the most studied type. A lot of people know Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
Big Five Oceans is the one that psychologists have been studying in much more depth because it's more predictable. And it was developed in and around the words people said. And it tells you O for openness, C for conscientiousness, EANS, and I'm going to forget them now.
Yeah.
We'll have to cut that in.
Sure, right, yeah. We'll pop it on the screen here.
Yeah,
Here's a break from our sponsor.
Oceans,
and then, it comes up, right.
But the elements of what you're measuring does give you personalities. And they're called archetypes. So they are the way people behave and think. And so there's a way to go ahead and measure that and embrace it by the words we say, the things we watch, the things we do. That's one element. We fuse it with another element that is called crossing the chasm. Okay. And in this world, if you haven't read it, you have your innovators and your early adopters. Your innovator, the first person
whole cycle,
that thinks about something. And oddly enough, they're not the ones that change the world.
No, it's never them.
It's the early adopter.
Yeah.
And within the early adopter, there's a really famous YouTube video. It's called The First Follower. And it's at a concert.
I just watched it again last night. It's so funny you said this.
You're just sitting there standing.
Yeah.
There's one guy, it looks like it's a Grateful Dead conference.
Yeah, right.
Or maybe
just
Jimmy
dancing
Buffett dancing.
Yeah.
Nobody else is dancing.
Yeah.
Until the first follower comes over. And then the droves come out.
Yeah, people come out. And
so
then it's at one point it becomes, to not be a part of that group, the penalty to not be in that group is greater than being on the outside, which is really fascinating because it's just a matter of time. In a few moments, that whole scene changes. If you've never seen this video, it's really fascinating. It's one guy just sort of dancing at this Grateful Dead concert. Then that first follower comes, and then it's like, I think 2 other girls step up, and then within minutes, everybody's dancing. So not to dance in that setting is like being on the outside. And
yet the first follower was the early adopter, not the innovator. And it was the early adopter that tipped. It's called crossing the chasm. Yeah. Then the early majority followed. So it's that early adopter that you want to tune into.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that will be the megaphone, the voice. And yet there's products and services that the late majority and even the laggard, there's still somebody out there buying buggy whips, I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose, but they are a segment. And it's a curve, and on either end of it, 2.5%, 2.5%. But it just depends on what business you're in, and you can measure that. So you've got your Big Five Oceans, you've got your crossing the chasm, and then there's another element called Plutchik Wheel of Emotion.
Okay.
Plutchink, Wheel of Emotion.
Plutchink, Wheel of Emotion.
Plutchik. And it maps out, most people can gravitate to love and fear, opposites of each other.
Yeah.
But there's actually 8 core emotions, and they've got
Opposites
versions that are more intense, versions that are less intense. Then you have the opposites, and you have the kissing cousins, the ones that are right next to it. If you do the math on that, Derrick, that is 16 personalities, archetypes,
Yeah.
to the power of 5, crossing the chasm.
Yeah.
That gets you to 15 trillion elements. Now take it to the power of 8. And now you have a number to the 57th power of possibilities. All right.
How do you test against that, right? That's hard.
You don't. That's so the entire point of this is that there's an incredible amount of math and science that can be embraced. And it just brings you back predictors, insights, because you can score them. You're not going to do it against trillions of ideas. You really, if you're doing it against 3, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
So these come back and they become what we call prompts. The predictor becomes a prompt. So when the world changed, what was the one thing that ChatGPT needed?
Prompt engineers.
Prompt
It was, I mean, there's still jobs out there for $300,000 right now posted on LinkedIn for people that know how to speak to AI. So know how to ask the right questions and get the right answers.
That's right. And this is an example where I don't know of too many mathematicians or scientists that want to go through those trillions of signals I just gave you. I know a lot of marketers that would like a real good head start with 3 predictors.
Sure.
They can help them with the, what do I say? What's my headline? Should I use an emoji or not? That simplicity. Colors, buttons, video, picture. These are all things that science and math can triangulate on and give the artist a huge head start.
It just gives you a palette of colors to paint with, right?
It does. What's trending?
It tells you these are the colors that are going to matter. If you want, you know, whatever the message is that you're trying to deliver, this is the palette of colors
Apparently,
that you can paint with. We are trying to get
and black are trending
pink
right
and
now.
black are right.
And big gregarious guys espousing whatever it is they know.
We've got the wait, hold on. See, this messes me up with cameras. We've even got the Zen elephant or Zen giraffe going back there. You know, these are all subliminal messages we're sending to you people.
And hardware right next to it.
All right, we did maybe move the Emmy into frame this time. I don't know.
Maybe we did.
Maybe. Just somebody. It must have been one of the cleaning ladies, right?
Nice job, Kelly.
Yeah, good job, Kelly Salloway. Thank you for that. Now that's really interesting that vocabulary is so important. So you've seen the movie Ex Machina?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So Ex Machina, I think.
And is that how you say it?
I believe so.
Okay.
I think it's.
We're ready for a little audience participation.
I don't know.
Machina.
Yeah. Whatever it is. I think it's.
I just wanted to mess something up and show how bad my vocabulary is.
Thank you. I love that movie because if you remember what it was that takes her to the next level of AI is her listening to, I think it was 1 or 2 minutes of all phone conversations in the world. And from that, she picks up the vocabulary needed, the way to communicate. She had the data before.
Right.
You know, ChatGPT and these large language models have that data right now. But it is understanding how to use that data in those settings that changes everything.
That's right.
So it is truly about the vocabulary, but it's also the inflection. It's the color that you paint with.
It's the prompts. It's when you said about that example from that movie, you've seen the movie Bruce Almighty?
Yeah, of course I remember that. Yeah.
Whenever Bruce takes the job, and he's got to go start answering prayers.
Yeah.
Great scene of him answering the millions and trillions of prayers heading his way, Post-it notes and everything, and finally he just hits Alt Control yes.
That'll cause some chaos.
That'll cause that's some emotions out of control.
Yeah. Isn't it the great Western philosopher Garth Brooks that said, sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers, right? It's like, you have to admit some of the stuff that you prayed for, people, you're really thrilled that it did not come to pass in the end.
But these are thoughts of volume, thoughts of unlimited possibilities. And this is where, when I'm thinking what the best is that AI can offer us, it is the ability to decipher, go through that, give you the best of the best in the responses.
So let me ask you some questions. Let's go a little philosophical on AI for a minute or two. One of the things that I like to think about when it comes to AI is looking at things like our healthcare system.
Right.
We have a healthcare system in which, our doctors and nurses pledge a Hippocratic oath that they'll do no harm. And that we also have a system in which we expect care regardless of where we are in our cycle of life. I think I heard a statistic one time that said something like 90% of all the healthcare you'll receive in your life will be in the last 12 months of your life.
Right.
And so one of the things that I've thought about a lot with AI and have brought into some conversations is, should we be taking AI and applying it to all of the parameters around healthcare and wellness and allowing it to make determinations on who gets what level of care and when, and all of these things based upon statistical probabilities that candidly would probably improve all of our outcomes, but it could actually have a negative repercussion to certain individuals. And I've been sitting here saying, I hate sitting like this because I feel like I'm fat, right? And it's like, well, that's one of those things, right? Where you're like, well, should I get the same level of care or treatment, access to resources as someone who is focused on their health and taking better care? These are difficult philosophical questions.
We just lived through that, right? I mean, literally,
we lived through a triage.
If we could have rewound what happened in the pandemic, we would have focused our attention on those that are at risk the most.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing this even now. The world. I've seen some things the last couple of days where they're saying that we'll never do it that way again, ever.
Right.
It will be a quarantine of the sick.
Yes.
It'll be a quarantine of children and elderly. It will not be a quarantine of the general population. And that is because we now look at the math and we go, that was not a good move.
So healthcare and AI. There's a company called doc.com.
Okay.
And they are a prospective client of ours.
Yeah.
And prospective because they're getting funded. But their charter is free basic healthcare for all. Let me repeat that. Free basic healthcare for all.
I like the word basic in there. That's good.
Well, you need it because you can't do everything online. That's right. You can't answer every question. It was born out of blockchain technology and for protection of the patient. So privacy and protection is of utmost importance. But if it weren't for AI, that you wouldn't be able to answer all the questions. I mean, even today, I've telehealth conversations with somebody that I have a problem with my knee, or I can go visit things. I can learn things online. Got a problem with my back.
Yeah,
I know more about a sciatic nerve now than I ever knew.
Sure,
which led me to some therapy, self-diagnosed. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. But these are all the things that are changing healthcare now, where innovation's happening, telehealth is here, and the tech is changing our ability to help ourselves. Derrick, the question that you posed is a tricky one, because the minute that there's somebody deciding you get this and you get that, then I start thinking about who's the money behind who's answering that question.
Sure. Well, and doesn't that bring a point of, let's just say with AI, if AI is not influenced by the limbic system, it's not thinking about the feelings, it's truly making a quantitative decision, I would think there's a probability that decision could improve outcomes. Now, that does mean that the word care, we have to define that differently, because we think about the word care means we're being cared for.
Right.
Where what I'm actually saying is we're looking at the entire system and saying, how do we get the best output and outcome of care across that system? which might mean that my care is diminished and your care is improved. But it is a conversation that I think is going to happen as we start to see more and more of these AI models that have the ability to quantify data and extract and abstractions from that, that might be different than what we're seeing through our eyes of empathy. And there's a great book out there right now. I love it. It's called Against Empathy. And the book specifically talks about how we're very prone to make empathetic decisions based upon the people that we can see right now.
Right.
And it's much more difficult. It's the reason that things like climate and all these kind of things aren't real big in conversation, because we're not talking about affecting it for ourselves. We're talking about it for somebody who's not even been thought of yet or born yet. And that is a very abstract thing. And it's hard to make the connections.
Well, let's try to put one bow on some of our conversation in and around healthcare. And it will tie it back to what you and I believe and can make an impact is bedside care, bedside manner. Yeah. Doctors that have a good bedside manner have what? They're tapped into the feeling.
Yeah.
How's the patient feeling? That's not textbook. You know, there is not. Like, it hurts here, doctor, is something else. It's like, I have a feeling how I should care for you. So these are the things that, to my knowledge, AI is not doing. It is not our limbic system.
It's not.
It isn't.
So does that give us better, let's bring that back to advertising and marketing for a minute, vocabulary and all those things. Does that mean that by utilizing AI inside of a marketing team, you're going to lose some of that bias that we're going to put in ourselves? In a best case scenario, yes. Okay.
Where is the AI looking for the signals?
Right, because if I redirect it to the wrong information, it's not going to help.
There's some bad stuff out there as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think I look at it that it's literally giving you predictive signals. It's up for the human being to decipher the feeling, the right prompt, the right message. And then you go put ChatGPT on your bench, because now you can say really magnificent things, poetry, as a matter of fact, songs that are a derivative of the right prompt, the right starting point.
It's really true. And I'm working on this right now with a startup that I've funded that is about trying to create sort of profiles for individuals and then allow that profile. I speak to the profile, but the profile speaks to ChatGPT, Bard, the internet. It does all of the work for me on the back end, because I do find, as somebody who writes and as an author, that it is very beneficial. There is no such thing as writer's block anymore with ChatGPT.
Right.
Right. I can jump in there and I can say, I'm stuck on this. Tell me what the next paragraph is. And I think there's a Jordan Peterson video that talks about this. He wrote I think it's the 10 rules or 12 rules for life. And then he took those to ChatGPT and said, what would the next one be? And it produced a result for him. And at first he was like, and then he thought about it and he's like, that's exactly what I would have, if I had thought about it long enough, that's exactly what I would have thought of.
Right.
So there is that ability to sort of extrapolate, I think, to improve the speed and the velocity and the volume of content that you can produce, as well as, getting to the message faster, refining that and boiling that down quicker to the message that you want to deliver to your customer.
It's still art and science, and
still a combo of both.
But now they're coming together.
That's great.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about cause and commerce, because you've talked about this a couple times in our conversations. What does that mean?
So I'll tell you where I lived it first, and then how I've studied it. At Cold Stone Creamery, we every year would grant wishes to make a wish.
Okay.
And can you think of anything that's a better connection than sick children looking for a wish and an ice cream?
Yeah, probably not.
I mean, ice cream.
John Cena is the only thing I can think would be better, right? Because I think he's like the number one. You know this? John Cena has granted like more wishes than anybody else in the world or something.
God bless him.
He's in like the Guinness Book. I think it's John Cena. It was in like the Guinness Book of World Records kind of thing. But ice cream would be a close two.
But knowing the impact of what it takes to grant a wish.
Yeah.
And so we aligned ourselves with Make-A-Wish. And then we'd have a wish child have their own creation. So we'd feature that
Oh,
creation.
nice. Okay.
And then everybody would come in and buy a star. And the creamery
Yep.
would be decorated in stars. And that's representative of all the dollars that flowed in to the tune of millions of dollars and untold wishes.
Yeah.
And yet we sold more ice cream because we were given money.
Cause and commerce.
We were given money. The customer was giving money, and we did good. Reciprocity
Yeah.
is the feeling that people get. Cone and Duke, it's the Cone-Duke study, and they stopped running it.
I thought you were talking about ice cream. I was getting hungry.
That was a great segue.
It was a really good segue. I have to admit, I was really thinking about going and getting an ice cream cone.
Duke, Cone,
the last
Duke
thing
study.
I need right now is an ice cream cone, but that's what I was going to do.
Yeah, we're going to get to
Cone Duke study.
We're
Okay.
going to get to some more sweets here in a moment.
Oh, that's what we're going to do.
Yes. So the Cone-Duke study, it was done for a few years, but then the numbers just stayed consistent. And the punchline was product A, product B, one supports something,
Yeah.
something. And remember, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So it could be a cause, it could be a nonprofit, it could be an idea. Save the earth, Patagonia.
Whatever it is, right?
They're doing a great job
Be
with
the
that.
stone. I'm talking about that right now.
There you
Be
go.
the stone, right?
And any customer, when faced with the choice of A and B, and A has a cause and B doesn't, greater than 85% choose A.
Really?
I mean, that's, you got to let that tip to your advantage.
Sure.
So it's estimated that in the economics of nonprofits, faith-driven causes, it's a $1.2 trillion a year economic impact.
Wow.
And that's from universities, hospitals, businesses, nonprofits.
Anybody associated with a cause can drive that.
But the economic, all of that is turning $1.2 trillion in our economy.
Wow.
Those are things of meaning,
Yes.
more meaning than I would argue or than our government has.
Yeah.
So when money goes there, it promotes more good, more impact. And there's so many to choose from. You don't even have to get, kind of bunged up on, I'm going to debate you on which cause is better.
Yeah.
Just go pick one.
Right.
Pick one that's aligned with your brand.
Yeah.
And, but don't just, in the case of breast cancer, just don't pink up your, and that's not why I have pink shoes on, by the way.
No, yeah.
But in October, don't pink out your brand.
Well, I think that's just happened with Pride. And I think it really sort of was a backlash of this in this last month.
That's right.
Every
Not
brand
against-
just put out a flag.
Not against the people that care deeply about Pride, but that I put the rainbow on everything or I put the pink on everything.
yeah.
It's not
It's
authentic.
disingenuous.
It's not authentic. So
Pardon me. I think people smell through that.
they do.
They know what it is.
They can sniff it out.
They know
it
it's
doesn't
BS.
feel authentic. So
It really doesn't.
cause and commerce is authentic connections.
That makes sense.
And if there's this $1.2 trillion economic impact and you're a business that doesn't have something that you're embracing, my goodness, I'd say first discover your why
Yeah.
and then find a cause, a purpose, something you're aligned
Something
with.
that aligns with you and your brand.
And I've got like a list of them and there's websites with them and, and we can touch on a few, but
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I do wonder too, and if we've talked a little bit, I've really been trying to go through and re-challenge my own world beliefs on really everything. And I've been reading, I mentioned Against Empathy, a book that I recently read. There's another one called Toxic Charity that talks about how, and to sum that up, there was the guy who wrote it essentially worked with homeless for many, many years in homeless nonprofits. And he was asked to come to give a speech at an event and to talk about success stories from his industry.
yeah.
And he couldn't find any. And he was like, well, wait a second here. Hold on. We've just spent a lot of money, a lot of time, why am I having trouble putting together a handful of success stories? And it really made him question if the model was right, and he's gotten a lot of hate for that. It's like even in the industry, I have a really good friend who was head of animal care and control for a while. And he told me, he said the most controversial thing he ever said, and he said it was really got him in a lot of trouble. He was at a conference and he said, someday we won't need to have these jobs. Someday we'll all be unemployed in this room. And he said, people were just infuriated by that. It's like, wait, so is our objective to solve the problem? Because if our objective is to solve the problem, it's like you said about marketers. It's like at some point the goal of truly being good at what you do is you're not needed anymore. And so that can bring up a bit of a challenge. But I think to your point, we all want to associate with causes. So picking one is just as good as the next, as long as other people can align with that.
Right.
But I do think, not to get too philosophical down that path, is it's like sometimes I think we have to rethink models in our lives and say, does this work because it works, or does it, or is it just going through the motions?
Well, when we're further into the process, Derrick, and we're having more and more guests, and the realm of possibilities brings more brands, more people that do these things. I think it's the sharing of the stories that will inspire people to find something authentic.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And I'm so glad you made it, because I think it's interesting with that gentleman in that book is he couldn't find the stories. Like, we all knew that we should take care of people that are hungry.
Right.
But he couldn't find the stories of how doing that actually helped the people in the long run. It certainly accomplished, it fulfilled a need today, but it didn't truly solve the problem in the long run. And that is an interesting thing to explore and to think about, that outcome piece.
Well, let's talk about
let's do that.
Your stone. I said, well, what is your stone?
Right.
Billy Crystal and Jack Palance. Remember the scene from City Slickers?
Oh boy, yes, I do.
One thing.
One thing.
Well, what is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's for you to figure out.
For you to figure out what that one thing is.
This is not as easy as, go out and get a list of 25 charities or whatever and pick one. I had the privilege of working with Donato's Pizza for a few years. And
I love that story too. I think as a guy who didn't grow up there, never got a chance to experience Donato's Pizza until you brought it.
Yeah.
I think to one of my secret sauce events one night. Remember that? We had like some event.
Well,
you brought a bunch of
we were
pizzas.
fortunate enough to expand west, and Donato's
in a very
started
interesting
appearing
way.
inside Red Robin's. We called it Red Robin Nested Donato's, because you could fit the brilliance of Jim Grody, the founder of Donato's, engineered a better pizza.
Yeah.
Engineered,
like literally engineered.
He's an inventor.
Yeah.
And 100 pepperonis on every large pepperoni pizza, sliced perfectly.
Yeah.
Slicing that pepperoni and putting 100 on invented Grody manufacturing, because he needed the equipment to slice the pepperoni to make it perfect. But that's not what Jim started doing. Jim started the business, and he's a believer in agape love and, do unto others.
Yeah.
And that's what it was all about. His daughter Jane wrote a book called The Missing Piece. Piece of pizza.
But the missing piece was
no, those are cut in squares.
Oh, that's right. They're not
Columbus style pizza is thin crust, edge to edge toppings, and cut in squares.
Okay.
The missing piece is that love, and they practiced it in the community from store number one, and the way they took care of their neighbors, straight through to sponsoring 12 nonprofits inside an old high school, renovated it, and taking care of their neighbors. And I carry this little piece of metal around, and it's a reminder from Jim Grody. And in his retirement, it's all about agape capitalism.
That's interesting.
And capitalism made from love. Do the right thing.
It's like a challenge coin. I love that.
Lead with love. And the golden rule.
Just a reminder, right?
Just a reminder. And there's not a single nonprofit that Donato's chose. Store by store, franchise partner by franchise partner, what mattered in that community. What was their one thing in Louisville, Kentucky was different than Columbus, Ohio, or any other parts of the footprint.
That's pretty awesome.
So that's cause and commerce.
I like that.
And it's authentic. Yeah. And that's the thing. You can't make this up. But if you do it right, you'll be remembered. You'll be remembered.
I love that.
Yeah. So couple others for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts has Dunkin' Joy to benefit children.
Yeah.
And Tom Shoes, buy the pair of
Tom
shoes.
Shoes is sort of a perfect example.
Right?
Right. I think Bombas is doing that now with socks.
Warren B. Parker's with the glasses did the same thing.
Right.
Yoplait their yogurt is aligned with the Susan B. Komen Foundation. Walgreens, although we had some other conversations about it, they've got the Red Nose.
Yeah.
Where,
I remember that. The Red Nose Day. Yeah.
Yeah. Red Nose Day. That matters. The Alex Lemonade Stand, the simplicity of it.
So you're saying that action, taking action in whatever cause it is, that if I'm, from a marketing perspective, if I've got two options and one's a Walgreens and one's a whatever it is.
And I know about Red Nose.
Yeah. And I'm going to choose that.
I'm going to choose Walgreens. If I,
it's very impactful, right?
And the math works out. And so, and when you get to the biology and psychology of the way we think and feel, we care more about why people do what they do than what they sell. So if that's why, the realm of possibilities for me, for our audience, I hope we spend countless days inviting guests to align and share that cause and commerce.
Right. That's a really good, and I can certainly see it. I mean, it doesn't have to completely align with your mission statement. Now, if you're PetSmart, you have PetSmart Charities.
Yes.
Which makes sense, right? Because there's a real connection to that. But it really doesn't matter what the cause is as long as you have one.
That's correct.
I guess that makes sense from the cause and commerce, right? It will drive the commerce piece because you have it.
So, the realm of possibilities and future episodes, I hope that we'll reach some people and they'll stick their hand up, because these are the stories that need to be told. And Derrick, you and I are just the type of chaps that can be the megaphones.
I love it.
All right.
That's great.